Hey everybody, Eric Hayden here on YouTube. Want to do a video update on applying pre-emergence. If you want to know more, look back at a video we did in late February and again in late March, talking a little bit more about pre-emergence and why we put them down. I want to show you the results of those pre-emergence behind me and then talk about applying again as we get into the summer months. If you see any of those prior videos, what we used in the garden this year was Snapshot. It was expensive. This 50-pound bag was a little bit over $100, but I've applied it in February, again in March, and I still have well over a half a bag left. And I applied it to more than just the rose bed. I did any of the ornamental beds in my yard. You can't do anything fruit bearing, so it's not in my vegetable garden, it's not where the blueberry bushes are, but anything that was an ornamental, roses, perennials, that type of thing, I've put it down. And I've been pretty happy. This is what it looks like in terms of the granular form. And keep in mind, a pre-emergent, again, prevents future weeds. If you have weeds now, it's not going to do anything about them. And it will also not do anything about certain types of weeds. I'll have more on that in a second. I just have a little hand spreader. That's what I use to put it down. And the rates come in low application, a medium, and a heavy. I went for the medium because I wasn't sure, even though roses aren't listed as having any issues with it, I wasn't sure, I didn't want to put down something and hurt the roses themselves. And the instructions were about a cup per 100 square feet. All of my beds are roughly just a little bit bigger than 100 square feet. I think that back one with the railroad ties is 135 square feet, but they're all just a little bit over. So I do a cup per bed with that hand spreader. So put a cup in the hand spreader and then lightly cover each bed. I did it kind of heavy when we go back to the spring months. Again, I said I did it in late February and again in March. The instructions say about every 60 days. I was probably at day 45. Now I'm at day 60 again, so I'm going to reapply for a third time. The reason why I did that, your weeds are really most prevalent in the spring and early summer. If you can prevent the weeds from germinating flowers or growing into flowers and spreading their seeds, you're really going to reduce your weeds for the summer months. And if you've been watching my videos, again, not a weed-free garden, but not many weeds at all. The two things I do have, and it is not listed, Snapshot to control it, so that's why I've got it, is this nutsedge. I mentioned this before. Real easy, really a pain, but still real easy to pull out, especially if you get it by all the roots. It's hard to get it all by the roots unless you've just watered or have a heavy rain. So I have to do a little hand pulling, and it talks about not being able to control any things that grow with like runners or rhizomes. So this is some grass that's getting out of my yard into the plant bed. So those types of weeds, it will not prevent. In addition, again, if you already have weeds, it's not gonna kill them. It just prevents future germination. But you look back at my prior videos, I used to have a lot of weeds. So I'm extremely happy. We're getting into June now. I should be having a ton of weeds in the bed, and I don't. So yes, a little hand pulling now and then. I mentioned, I'd say a good hour it would take to weed these beds, and I would have to do it twice a year. So, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 beds. That's 7 to 10 hours twice a year just on maintenance of weeding. So that's certainly something I'm glad I don't have to do as much anymore. You can see the growth of the roses is looking pretty good. Blooms are a little smaller now. This is Ring of Fire. Still colorful, but with the heat, we've been up in the near 90 the last couple days. Blooms aren't going to be as big. Growth is good. The tallest one, 7.5 feet. That's Let Freedom Ring. See that red one there. So the growth is doing good. So overall, the rose beds are looking pretty good. Still battling some spider mites. I've done a couple rounds of miticide and a water spray, and they're still around, so it's going to be a battle here for a while. And if you saw our last video, some downy mildew, especially on this Dublin Bay, looks like it hasn't really spread in the rest of the garden, and I don't see any more leaves that have the splotchiness to them. So I think I've stopped it in its tracks. You can see the residue on the leaves from the manzate and alliate that I've sprayed to kill and prevent any future spreading. I have noticed some curling of the leaves and some reddening of the undersides of some other leaves. So again, it's there, but I think I stopped it in its tracks before it got too out of control, which is certainly good news. I'll last leave with our perennial bed. I'll probably do the roses tomorrow. One thing with those pre-emergents, you have to water them in. It says at least a ½ inch of rain. So do it before a steady soaking rain. Unfortunately, we haven't had that here in Eastern North Carolina. We had 1/3 of an inch the other day, and then prior to that, it was more than 10 days without rain. So I'm gonna go ahead, since this is such a small bed, I put it down, I'm just gonna hand water it in. This is what it looks like on the ground. You can see the granulars, that kind of yellow tinge to it. You can just barely see it on some of these beds. And again, it's not going to prevent weeds that have germinated. So you can see I already have some weeds in here. We just built this about 3 weeks ago. Put the mulch down, but look at all these weeds popping up. So I should have done the pre-emergent right as soon as we did this fire pit, but I didn't get to it. It does list crabgrass as something that prevents, so I'm looking forward to preventing those. So by putting this pre-emergent down, I won't have any future seedlings germinate. And then since these are so spaced out, I'll just go by and round up the middle part just to knock those weeds back. I certainly don't want to get it by the perennial. You can see the cosmos here, they're looking good. But again, there's a lot of germination of weeds here. You can see those. So I want to keep that from getting any worse. And I am happy that crabgrass, as you can see here, is listed as something that Snapshot does control. So this perennial bed will get cleaned up pretty quick. Watering in that Snapshot will prevent any future weeds. I'll round up the weeds that have already germinated in between the perennial bed, and then we'll go from there. So if you need any more instructions, look at the prior videos on the pre-emergence. This is the first year I've ever done it. I am impressed. It's doing what it should do, and it's not hurting the roses, and it is keeping the weeds at bay, especially those ones that it's listed to control. So really, really happy with those results thus far. Just curious, comments below, do you use pre-emergence? Do you even know what it is? Have you heard of that before? Is this the first time? Comment below. I'm always looking at the comments. I can answer those questions for you if you've got any questions in the comments. Last thing, I get some comments. I love gardening, obviously mostly roses, but I do have some vegetables. We cleared out the broccoli and also the, cabbage. So now we've got a couple tomatoes and squash, about one of the easiest things to grow. Sure, it'll get powdery mildew at some point this season. I don't really spray the vegetables, but yeah, they're looking good as well. We just need some rain. The grass looks green, but that's because we have an irrigation system here for the yard. Hope everyone's doing well. Comment below. Curious your thoughts on the pre-emergent video. Do you use it? What kind do you use? Do you have anything to share with the audience? Have a great day, everybody.